Want to run a business that makes creative and custom clothing and earns an annual revenue in the high six figures? Well, stick around to learn how. On this episode, we'll be featuring Forrest Wedmore and his partner, Clint Graham, who unfortunately didn't make it to today's interview. They're the owners of the Foundry Print Shop, a screen printing and embroidery business that has a revenue of high six figures every year, and they're on track to double their growth in the next year.
Our break even is about $1,200 a day.
Can you give us a good day numbers-wise and a bad day as well? Forrest opened the Foundry after working in retail where he saw a need for high-quality American-made clothing. Now, with humble beginnings using rented equipment, starting in a small 10 by 10 space, they've now expanded into a 4,000 square foot facility, fully stocked, as you can see, with modern equipment.
This is a really great tool for kind of the entry-level automatic press. That's kind of what this is.
What was the budget to get into this business, and can you break it down for us? The Foundry has grown every year since opening, and today we're going to find out how Forrest made that happen. He's going to talk about the necessary equipment that you need and the cost to starting an embroidery shop. We'll also talk about his approach to finding, retaining customers, hiring, management of staff, and also the kind of profit margins you guys can expect from a screen printing and embroidery business. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to our channel, and let's go talk to Forrest. Talk about your story, a little bit about yourself, and how you ended up getting into the embroidery and screen printing business. I mean, did you have experience before?
Sure. Before I did this, I worked in the kind of snow skate surf industry. So I worked for retailers, kind of, building out their purchases and merchandising their stores, buying their products, stocking their shelves. And while I was doing that, I was kind of surprised at how difficult it was to find somebody to do like private label stuff. So say you're like Steve's skate shop or whatever, it was really hard to find somebody to make quality t-shirts that were for your shop specifically.
Custom, yeah.
Yeah, and we did really well with other custom products. So we were like, hey, maybe we should get into that business. Maybe we should start making t-shirts for skate shops and stuff and kind of try to present that as a brand. So.
What was the budget to get into this business, and can you break it down for us, like what money went where?
So basically the print shop that we were working with to print shirts for shops was kind of struggling, and he had fallen behind in rent, and he just was having a hard time keeping his business afloat. So we offered to buy it from him for $10,000. So we borrowed that money from a family member, and that's where the U-Haul kind of story comes into it, is that the guy that held the lease on the building where that shop was had gotten a lien on the equipment. And then when the 2-day notice to pay or vacate came up, he locked all the doors so you couldn't get the stuff out.
Wow.
Yeah, so we went down there at night with bolt cutters and cut the door open and took the gear out of it, paid Jamie $10,000. It was fully legal and legit.
Boss style.
Yeah, and then we had that print shop in a U-Haul sitting in front of my house for about 2 months. All said and done, we got equipment that somebody knew how to run, which was our friend Jamie, and we got it at a pretty good price. So, I mean, sometimes it's whatever it takes, right, to get there.
Forrest, in terms of a good day, bad day for you, can you give us a good day numbers-wise and a bad day as well?
Yeah, I think we've determined our break even is about $1,200 a day. Okay. Just to turn the shop on, have everybody down here working. So I would say that, a bad day is $1,200 or less.
Yeah, not getting there.
Yeah, a good day is about, we'll make $5,000 or so. Wow. On a good day.
On average, though, if you would take the last 30, 90, 120 days, what does the day look like dollar-wise?
About $3,500 a day.
Got a lot of small printers here that I see covered, but yeah, what are these massive?
Yeah, so this right here, this is an automatic press. So these are automatic screen printing presses. This is a 6-color. So this thing will print 6 different colors. I mean, maybe more like 5, but either way, this is a 6-head automatic printer. So this basically does the same thing that you do when you're manually printing. It just pulls the squeegee for you. Okay. So this is a really great tool for kind of the entry-level automatic press. That's kind of what this is. So if you're going from manual printing to getting an auto, this is probably what you'd be looking at, something like this.
How much does it cost?
This thing was $35,000.
And the big guy?
This one was $65,000.
Let's talk about your monthly expenses. What are the biggest expenses? Where does it go to, and how much is it?
For sure, payroll is always huge, right? You know, payroll is about $25,000 a month.
Wow. Okay.
So that adds up quick, you know. And then garments, you know, can be $30,000 a month.
Whoa.
And yeah, we do a lot of that on terms. So, you know, we try to pay them off at the end of the month on net terms. We always pay our bills on time, which is another really important thing to do if you're a business, is to have that, you know, that business credit and that reputation of paying your vendors on time. So yeah, I would say those are the biggest two. It used to be rent, but now it's like anything when you first start out, you know, it's those fixed costs seem really high, but then as you grow, you're like, well, the cost of growing now is really our biggest expense, right?
Now you're spending 30 grand on
garments. Yeah, absolutely.
Let's talk about profit margins.
Okay.
Where are you at personally in your business, and then what is the industry standard? Like, where do you want to be?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. One of the things that kind of sets us apart from other print shops is that we rarely let the customer provide the garment. You know, we feel like being able to provide the customer with like a contemporary garment, something that's a little bit more elevated than you would get if you just picked up the phone and called any print shop around town, is a big part of how we stay competitive. And it's also a big part of where our margin comes from.
What would they be? I mean, industry standard, let's start there, and then where are you at if you're willing to share with us?
We try to shoot for what we call keystone. So keystoning is like basically 50% margin or 100% markup on the garments. And, you know, and that comes from both sides. It's, you know, getting the customer a better price than they can go out and buy themselves because they're not a wholesaler. And then also creating volume with our vendors to try to be more competitive in what they can provide us as far as pricing goes.
What about clientele? What did you do? What tools did you use to attract new customers?
So, you know, we had experience in the action sports industry, so we started reaching out to that network first, you know, and that definitely, to this day, is probably our largest client group. So I would say, yeah, like, you know, look for relationships that are existing. Or while you're, you know, if you're thinking about starting a business, start building those relationships early on. We just kind of started like sending them SnowCon shirts, be like, hey, here's a shirt we made for SnowCon, check this out, you know what I mean?
So you gave them some sample products?
Yeah, kind of gave them some sample products and kind of told them what our program was, what our ideas were, and
why not?
It makes it a little easier to sell it to them, yeah, for sure.
Well, you have that base, it's certainly a lot easier, but what about people that don't, that have gotten into this business, that don't have those established relationships? What would you suggest to them they do? What would be the most effective way?
Yeah, so basically, it's really hard to like cold call people about screen printing and embroidery because 99% of the time you're like, I do that once a year, dude, but not right now, and I'm busy. You know what I mean? So I think the best way to approach that is to make yourself easy to find. Instead of trying to go out and promote yourself, really just make yourself really visible. And so, you know, focus on SEO and your presence with social media and make products or pilot products with friends and have them talk about them, I would say is a good way to do it. And I mean, that's something that we still do to this day. Back here, this is the screen room. This is where stencils are made. This is an exposure unit. So basically what you do is you take your screen. This is an unexposed screen, okay? You take your film like this, stick that on there, put that all in here, okay? And basically, the UV light shines up at the screen and exposes the emulsion everywhere that the film is not. So the film creates a shadow, right? So what doesn't get exposed then is water soluble, and you can bring that over here and spray it out with the pressure washer.
Oh wow, it's quite the process.
So you rinse all of that unexposed emulsion out and it leaves behind your stencil. And then the screen printing press uses a squeegee to push that ink through the stencil onto the garment. So screen printing, it seems pretty primitive, but like
it does.
That's why digital printing hasn't caught up yet, because you've really got to force that ink into the garment. You really got to get it in to get that mechanical bond so it can survive wash. So using a screen to push ink through and then curing that into the garment gives you that durable ink film that you're not going to be able to get with a digital printer.
What about employees? Can you walk us through the hiring process in a nutshell, and kind of how many people do you have working with you too?
So, you know, it fluctuates between 8 and 5 people to run this business.
Including you?
Including myself and Clint and Kara. So maybe, yeah, like maybe let's say 8 to 11. You know, like 11 is like the most we've ever had. And honestly, now that we're down to 6 employees, we are actually like the best business that we've ever been.
Okay.
Just because everybody really knows what they need to do. We have really motivated people. I've always had the a belief that like I would rather have a few really well-paid people than a bunch of people that don't really make that, because you know then you can really get a lot out of them.
Right, you're doing more with less people.
More with less people, yeah. And I also feel like automation is a really big part of that formula, because then like one person knows what they're doing, can run one of these presses and, you know, make a couple $1,000s, you know? And so like if we're competing against like China and other countries where most of their business is done manually, it's really easy for us to be competitive even globally.
What percentage of your business is repeat customers, new customers, etc.?
Okay.
Elaborate on that.
Yeah, so probably 80% of our business is repeat.
Wow, okay.
Probably
just bigger accounts?
Yeah, bigger
mainly?
accounts for sure, you know. And probably 60% of that 80 are customers that we've had for more than 5 years. So our biggest customers and most profitable customers are the ones that have been with us the longest, for sure.
I hope you guys enjoyed this first episode of The Foundry. What an amazing story of starting in a U-Haul, ending up in a 4,000 square foot shop. Success, growth, hard work, that's all I heard, and more. I hope you guys really enjoyed it. If you haven't liked this video already, make sure you hit that button, subscribe, and watch episode 2. It's gonna be amazing. The link is in the description below, or just hit the thumbnail.